G'day everyone, thanks for checking out my latest pickups video. If you haven't watched my last few videos, I'll leave an annotation to the playlist. Check them out. I like to talk about my games, I like to go through each purchase. Maybe I got a good deal, maybe I liked the game, maybe I played it in my childhood. I always talk about the games I pick up. So hopefully you should enjoy those videos, so check those out. For today's video, I've got a huge amount of games, some rare ones, some expensive ones, some not so expensive ones, but there's a lot. And at the very end, I'll show off a few of my picks of the lot. But before I do that, I wanted to talk about markets I went to on the weekend. I'd seen this thing be advertised a few times over the past few weeks, so I thought I'd go check it out. It was supposed to be a Brisbane video games and pop culture markets. There was supposed to be a DJ, food stalls, stuff like that. So I got really hyped up for it. I'd planned to actually shoot some video and, show us, me and a few friends going through and finding good deals and stuff like that. Unfortunately, there's no video because it was a pile of shit. So we got there and it was me and a couple of friends. And by the time we got there was about 40 or so people lined up. We went and got some cash out, came back, and a few more people had joined the group. So we got let in eventually, and they let us out the side of this restaurant into the back area where they probably usually have patrons and stuff sitting. And there was 5 stalls, I believe, 2 of which didn't even sell video games. One of which was selling magazines, like I'm pretty sure it was like Hustler or Playboy or something. One of them was selling figures and books and stuff like that, which looked cool, and I would have loved to actually go on and had a look, but just the amount of people that was crammed into that little area, it made it impossible. And so I got a little bit of a look at some of the stalls. I probably could have picked up a couple of cheap PS1 and PS2 games for average prices, nothing special, but I really didn't want to be jammed in there with all these people. It stunk, you could tell the people who hadn't showered. So we bailed on that pretty early. It was a severe disappointment. And so we thought, we'll try to come back a bit later when it's not so busy. And we came back and it was still packed. And then there was guys walking out with stacks of games this high. So I just said, fuck that. I don't want to deal with that. So that was a huge disappointment. I'd built this up in my head that it was going to be a big open markets area with people of all different kinds selling the games. And it was literally 5 people selling a bunch of overpriced stuff. I saw a few completed box Nintendo 64 games for $40, but they were like sports games. They weren't very good. One guy was selling mostly Japanese games, and they were way overpriced for what you could get. So yeah, I won't be going back to that again unless they move it into a bigger area, because it was a pile of shit. But yeah, so that's why I guess I'm a member of some forums online, and that you always get looked down upon if you buy it on eBay or if you buy online. And the sad reality is that we just don't have the stores, we don't have the markets available. There's plenty of markets around, but the odds of finding video games nowadays are so low. So I have to buy on eBay. So that's my little rant for the day. Anyway, let's get stuck into the game, shall we? I've got a pile of Game Boy games here, some really good ones. I haven't shown a lot of handheld games in my past videos, and I think it's about time I gave them some love. So I did pick up quite a few handheld games. So first up we have Looney Tunes Martian Alert for the Game Boy Color. I'm just a reminder that all games I buy, complete in box, are in good condition, which makes collecting a lot slower and a lot more expensive for me, but that's okay. I love the way they look on my shelf. I really don't want to collect carts and poor quality boxes and stuff like that. We have a Castlevania double pack, and it contains Aria of Sorrow and Harmony of Dissonance. That's the Game Boy Advance, happy to have that. Warrior Land 3 for the Game Boy Color. I think I have Warrior Land 1, if I'm not mistaken. Wings of Fury for the Game Boy Color. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets for the Game Boy Color. And finally, Wolfenstein 3D for the Game Boy Advance. And I've heard that this port's not too bad, surprisingly. Obviously, if you're going to play Wolfenstein, you're going to play the PC version, of course. So next up, we have a pile of Mega Drive games and one non-game. So first of all, we've got Mega Bomberman. Pretty good port of the Bomberman, original Bomberman. I really like the Saturn version with 8 players. That is a lot of fun. It's super expensive. You need 8 Saturn controllers and Saturn Bomberman, which is hugely expensive at the moment. But some of the most fun I've ever had is at parties with like 5-6 people playing Bomberman. It's a blast. Pun very much intended. We've got Pro Action Replay. This is obviously not a game, but I was buying a few other things from this guy, so I thought, yeah, I'll pick this up. I think I've already got an Action Replay for the Mega Drive, but hey, have one in boxes. You can't pass that up for, I think it was like $20 or something. We've got College Football 97. This is sealed, and this is a Genesis game. We obviously don't get many college football or college basketball games out in PAL territories. Maybe none. I don't even remember the last one that ever came out. Obviously, because the college, we don't show the college series games on TV over here. You can probably get them on cable, but that's about it. So yeah, nice to have that one. Sealed. I don't really care too much about sealed Mega Drive games, but it was no more expensive than a non-sealed, so I figured I may as well pick it up. We've got Valis for the Genesis. This is first of, I think, 3 or 4 Valis games on the Mega Drive or the Genesis. Unfortunately, they never actually came out in PAL territories. Mega Drive's a bit funny when you play Genesis games on the Mega Drive and vice versa. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, in my experience. So I do have a converter to play that, and I'm keen to play it because it has really good music. Check it out on YouTube. We've got Shining Force 1 for the Mega Drive. Super stoked to finally get this because I've wanted it for a long time. I've got Shining Force 2, and I've always wanted one to complete the collection. I've got 3 as well on Saturn. And I've just been waiting for the right price, and I've been very slow, very, very patient, and I eventually found one which I was more than happy to pay what the seller was asking for. It was a lot less than what I'd seen others go for around the time, so happy to finally tick that one off my list. That's one less game. I have a list of games that I'm actively looking for, so it's really nice to finally get one of those and strike it off the list. And another one I had stricken off the list was Salil for the Mega Drive. If you're in America, you probably know this as Crusaders of Senti, or I'm pretty sure it's Senti, it might be Kenti, I don't fucking know. It's really cool, sort of pseudo RPG, sort of action adventure game. It kind of reminds me of Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, that type of game. Looks really cool. I think I played it on a emulator probably 10 years ago, but happy to finally get that one. Next up, we've got lots of I don't know, there's a bit of everything here, so we'll just get stuck in. Tiny Toons Adventures Buster and the Beanstalk for the PS1. Now, if you look at that, it's actually a thin case. And that's actually unique, I believe, to Australia, because we got a bunch of games that were printed in Australia and for sale only in Australia and New Zealand, and they came in these little thin cases. I personally don't like them. I much prefer having the bigger jewel cases to go in my collection. It just looks better with all the rest of the games, because 99% of them are the big, thick jewel cases, but I'm happy to grab these ones for a couple of bucks. I can potentially buy the thicker jewel cases for them later. I've got Surf Riders. Really not a whole lot to say about that. A couple of dollars. Destruction Derby Raw. As you can see, the big G printed on the front. It's an Australian version. And, a thin jewel case. Austin Powers Pinball. Have that. Championship Motocross. As you can see, the case is a bit damaged, but I really don't care. Buying PAL PS1 games is such a drag because the cases are so prone to damage. They're so easy to crack, so easy to for hinges and stuff to break for there's little needles that hold the CD in to break. So I highly suggest you stock up on buy cheaper games, and you can swap the cases out no problem with your more expensive games if you've broken a case. I've got a lone Dreamcast game here, and it is Nightmare Creatures 2. Pretty sure this came out on PS1, Nintendo 64, probably computer as well. But happy to have the Dreamcast version. It wasn't very expensive. I'm really considering going for a complete Dreamcast collection one day. The dream is to have a complete PS1 collection, but I think Dreamcast is definitely doable. There's probably about 3 or 4 really expensive PAL games which I don't have. Like, really expensive. The rest of them are very reasonable, so, and the library's a lot smaller than PS1 and PS2, so maybe one day I'll slowly plot away at it. I've got 2 PSP games here. First is Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Tag Force. I got it for extremely cheap, and it's actually surprising. I could easily sell it for a profit because there's quite a few people are still buying these, and it's pretty popular. And SpongeBob the Yellow Crusader, or the Yellow Avenger, I should say, for the PSP. I've got a lone GameCube game here, and it's WrestleMania X8. And it's still sealed. Obviously got a bit of a tear on the seal, sort of up the top right hand corner there, but that's alright, I don't really care. I'm probably never going to open it anyway. And a lone Xbox game, Serious Sam 2. And I have heard that Serious Sam ports on the Xbox, the OG Xbox, are actually really good. Again, like Wolfenstein, if you're going to play it, you're going to want to play it on the PC, but yeah, I've heard the Xbox ports are very, very good. Alright, next up we have a pile of Super Nintendo games, and there's 5 games here, and they're all US versions. I've probably mentioned it before, but I obviously collect PAL, either from UK or Europe or Australia. Occasionally I'll buy US games or Japanese games, and if I do that, it's because they never actually came out here. Or, if I buy a Japanese game, it probably never came out in English. So these 5 games never actually got released in PAL territories, at least on the Super Nintendo. There was the seller in the UK who was selling a heap of Super Nintendo games, and he was selling some very rare PAL games. And I, of course, wanted to buy them, but everyone was looking at them. The price was way, way higher than what I was prepared to pay. But he was also selling a bunch of US games, and I had a look through the ones he was selling, and I found these 5 that had actually never come out in PAL. And I thought it was a lot cheaper to buy from him than down the line ever buy them from the United States, because even though these games are not very expensive in the US, shipping will absolutely kill me. So I picked them up now. They probably equaled about $15 each, maybe $20 each, including shipping. So I got a pretty good deal, I think. First up, we've got Kokoma Night Busyland. Weird fucking name. Don't know a whole lot about it. We've got F1 Rock 2, which is Race of Champions. Surprisingly, didn't come out in PAL as far as I'm aware. If it did, it didn't cost me much. We've got Batter Up, baseball game. Up until about the PS2, I believe, we didn't get a whole lot of baseball games out in Australia or in PAL. We got a shit ton of cricket games, but yeah, definitely no baseball games. It's not until recently where it's actually got a bit more popular worldwide. We've got Faceball 2000. Another weird name for a game. As you can see, the box is great. It's just got a bit of sticker residue on the front. I could potentially try and remove it, but it's fine. Not a big deal. And last but not least, another baseball game, Extra Innings. They're all in really good condition. Minor blemishes and stuff, but the boxes all held together nicely, so they'll look good on my shelf. Alright, next up we have a system which you probably don't hear a lot of people talking about anymore. There definitely are collectors for it, but it's not a very popular system to collect for. Trying to get the games in box complete is quite difficult because the boxes are notorious for being easy to rip, easy to lose, stuff like that. So, and it is the Game Gear. Sorry, the phone's just buzzing, probably eBay or something. Game Gear's great. I love the Game Gear. I remember back in the day, my cousins actually had one. And it was like playing a Mega Drive game, but handheld. The graphics were good. It sounded great. My one complaint about the system is that 99% of the games are ports of Mega Drive or Super Master System games. So, but there definitely are a few exclusives, a few good games for the system. Most of the games I've got here you can probably get on Mega Drive anyway. But hey, happy to have it. The system library isn't huge. It's just hard to find games complete. So first up we have Micro Machines. Box is a bit tatty, but it's complete. Super Smash TV. This game came out in everything, even probably a toaster. Echo the Tides of Time. Of course, if you're going to play this, you're probably going to want to play the Mega Drive or Genesis version. We've got Aerial Assault. We have Spider-Man, which came out on Mega Drive, probably Super Nintendo. We've got Devilish, which is a puzzle, sort of unique puzzle game. The boxes are really crisp, surprisingly. Apart from maybe one or two, they're all really good. And last but not least, we've got Axe Battler, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a sort of a combination of Golden Axe and like a JRPG, or like not a JRPG, like a strategy RPG, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure it's an exclusive for the Game Gear, so happy to have that. They're all fairly cheap. It's definitely easy to start a collection, especially if you're just going for the carts only. But yeah, happy to have them. Finally give my handheld collection some love, and I haven't bought a Game Gear game in probably a couple of years. Alright, last but not least, I've got 3 games to show off on 3 different systems. Each of them are pretty special, ones I've wanted for a while, which I managed to finally pick up. And I'll show them off. I consider these the best picks out of the lot. They're not necessarily the most expensive or the rarest or the most in demand. They're just my favourites. To start it off, I've got a Genesis or a Mega Drive game here, which came out in 2006. Now you're probably wondering, hang on, Mega Drive was well discontinued before then, and that's true, but there are quite a few non-licensed games that have come out for the Mega Drive, also Super Nintendo, Nintendo Entertainment System. You probably see some come out for the Saturn soon because it's just recently been hacked. So there are people developing these unlicensed games, some from scratch, for these systems, and one of them that got released is Beggar Prince. This is probably the most popular one that I remember back in the day. The one you probably know about is Piazzolla, which I've shown off for the Dreamcast. I also have a copy for the Mega Drive. And I remember this back in the day because it came out in 2006, and I believe it sold about 600 copies. That was all the copies that were made originally. All sold out, of course. And yeah, they made another 300 copies around Christmas time that year, all sold out. So I still think you can buy the third printing. This is the first print, the one you would have bought back in 2006. So it isn't cheap, but I definitely got a good deal on it. I paid a lot less than what other people had paid for it recently. I did a bit of research, so happy to pick this one up, add it to my Mega Drive Genesis collection. Probably won't ever play it, but it's nice to have, a nice little piece. Next up we have a Mega Drive. We have a Super Nintendo game. I showed off the first one the last video I made, but this is ActRaiser 2. Excited to collect these games because both of the games I bought, I really hadn't planned on buying them. They were ones I had planned to buy down the line, and just stumbled upon both of them. Picked this one up from Germany. And he had a bunch of other really good games which I wanted to pick up, but unfortunately they were a bit out of my price range, but I was very happy with the price I paid for that. There's a huge amount of rare sort of games that only came out in Europe, and or I should say came out in Europe and probably didn't sell a whole lot in the UK or Australia. So you got to start looking at other countries like Germany or Italy or Spain and stuff like that to get them. This is one I had to go to Germany for. I'm super excited to have ActRaiser. It's a great combination of like a god sim sort of city builder and a action sort of hack and slash game. So super excited to have ActRaiser 1 and 2 finally. And last but not least, this game I wanted for the PS2 for the longest time. Ever since I watched a stream of it a couple of years ago, I think it was maybe Dan's Game was streaming it, possibly for one of his October sort of specials where he does the Halloween month, and it is Michigan Report from Hell. Weird is how I describe this game because it's made by Grasshopper Interactive, which is of course got Suda51 in it. I believe he produced this game, so if you know about him and you know about his other games, you know that it's probably a bit weird. It's very janky. The voice acting is pretty bad. It's just a weird game, but it's pretty entertaining. It was pretty funny at times. It was pretty scary at times. It's a survival horror. I think it's like a first-person survival horror game where you've got a camera and you record things. But it looks really cool. I'm keen to play it one day. Maybe even stream it. One less obscure survival horror game to buy for PS2. So happy to finally grab this one, cross it off my list. It's an English version. English ones are a little harder to find, at least in PAL, than say German or Italian versions, or French. But happy to grab it. So yeah, that's my pickups for the last couple of months. If you have any comments, any questions, please leave me a comment. Please like, subscribe. If you've got your own small YouTube channel, leave me a message. I love to check it out because it's like finding like hidden gems on YouTube. I know there's millions out there. There's some really great channels that I've just stumbled upon. So if you have your own, please let me know. I'd love to meet other collectors and other YouTubers, and especially if you're in Australia, because I just don't know very many collectors around here. It's a hobby that I stumbled into ages ago, and kind of wish I didn't after the amount of money that I've spent. But there's just so few of us around, at least in Australia. So yeah, so thanks for checking me out. I'm planning to do more videos, not just collection videos. I think about other things. I'll leave a link to my RF Generation page. It's not complete, but it does list most of the games in my collection. I'm always updating that list. So if you're curious about how many games I've got, check that list out. So yeah, until next time, thanks, bye.